All right, friends, hello, greetings, and hi, how do you do to all of you on YouTube? This is my first live stream on YouTube. I'm doing it just as a test broadcast, as we are in the early stages of developing a new a podcast. It's going to be a live broadcast, simulcast on Facebook and YouTube that will also be a published podcast. It's going to be the Boss Better Now podcast, which is certainly in line with the work that I've been doing for years with leaders across the country to help them become better bosses and build stronger teams. If you're a subscriber to my channel, you know that a lot of the work that I do is really focused on helping leaders create the conditions that lead people to thrive. And as a result, there's some knowledge and some skills and some beliefs that we have to cultivate among folks who lead people in order for them to go off and create those environments that meet the emotional and psychological conditions that lead people to care and try and give it all they've got. So we're going to be launching a podcast that focuses on that. I've got some fun ideas for that podcast. I tend to reach for podcasts that are a little bit shorter in length. I know there are a lot of programs out there that can go 50, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. I saw a 2.5-hour podcast the other day, and I thought, man, who has that much time to both create that much content and listen to and consume that much content? So my plan is going to be to shoot for about 30 minutes a week. 30 minutes for me, and we may hit 40, right, depending on what we've got going on. And maybe some weeks we're only going to come in at 20, 23 minutes. But that 30-minute broadcast amount feels like a sweet spot to me for a new podcast that will also be a live broadcast here on YouTube. I feel like 30 minutes is just the right amount of time to spend on the treadmill while you're listening to a podcast. Or if you went out for a bike ride, maybe you get your warm up for 30 minutes. And by the time you're really ready to push it, you probably don't want to listen to me anymore. You want to put on some music, some stuff that really gets your blood pumping. So 30 minutes is what we're going to be aiming for on the podcast. We are tentatively looking at August as a launch for this new program. I'm really excited about it because it's going to be a little less of the prepared stuff that you've seen on our YouTube channel before, some of the 5-minute and 9-minute how-to videos, and a little bit more kind of talking about the challenges of the day and the issues of the day, responding to viewer and listener questions. We may occasionally have guests. I have a lot of friends who do podcasts, and the nature of their podcast really is just having a guest and talking to that guest, and let's share that guest's expertise, and thanks for listening to my podcast. And I want to do something a little bit more interesting than that. I really want to do a kind of a show, right, with blocks and segments and some rich content and some fun built in. I think what I'm going to be challenged to think about is the tone and the pacing of that show. So when you listen to a podcast, what do you like? What's important to you? I listen to a lot of podcasts where there's a lot of production value. There's music and sounds, and there's segments, and there's sponsors, and thanks for moving into this XYZ of the week with us. And I've listened to other podcasts where it's really quiet. It's just this. It's the person sitting and speaking and sharing. And so I'm not sure yet what the new podcast will be like in terms of tone and in terms of style. I tend to like to put on a little bit of a show, so bringing in some music and some images and some things like that is certainly on my radar. I'm also planning on a number of recurring segments, right? I think it'd be really cool that if I do have guests, that they are, real live actual bosses, right? Not just celebrities who talk about bossing, but bringing in clients of mine and friends of mine who are on the front lines in their various industries and talking about the challenges and struggles that they have overcome as leaders. I think that would be really cool to do. Not for 30 minutes. But for a few minutes at a time here and there. I see us doing some content in and around the news of the day. We see plenty of things online of some really bad boss moves. I think it'd be fun to do a bad boss move of the week, where we kind of learn from mistakes people have made as leaders. And certainly I think a lot of the content's going to come from you. A lot of the content's going to come from the kinds of questions I answer in training and in workshops and at keynotes, the things I get over email from folks from time to time. I got an email this week from someone who was struggling with an issue for some customer-facing employees. We had a really great dialogue over email, and what we settled on as a strategy for her would be a great piece of content to share in a future podcast. And so I'll probably be pulling down from the day-to-day work that I do with clients and with organizations across the country, and using that to populate some of the podcast. I'm also a big believer in learning being something that we have to reach for intentionally over time, over and over again, and that the best way to develop leaders is to find ways for them to think about and work on and reflect on their leadership style and how effective they're being on an almost daily basis, which is why I'm a big believer in journaling for leaders. Now, I know journaling sounds like a kind of a frou-frou, hippy-dippy baloney thing, and it means different things to different people. But I see it more as an intentional exercise where we zero in on our learning and on our development. And so I'm actually working on creating a series of questions, exercises, reflections, and activities to put together into a larger Boss Better journal. And so doing a journaling exercise of the week on the podcast, giving that to you all as a listener and as a viewer to then take with you and do that week to help you boss better, I think is a really cool piece of content that we could have for the podcast. Big question for us, for folks who might be tuned in right now, is how does it look? Do you like me center screen like this? I do have the capacity to pan a little bit, right? We can put me over here like a news broadcast, right? The events of the day, and I could have some graphics show up there. It's a little busy right there, though. That may not be a good idea. I can slide back over here, use the flip chart back there if I need to. Here in our virtual broadcast studio, I've got a lot of room and a lot of space to do a lot of things. Here, I'll show you what that looks like. There we go. I'm in my stool. Got my new broadcast stool. So yeah, this is a test run of a live stream on YouTube in preparation for some recurring broadcasts that we're planning here in about 8 weeks. And so I'm excited. I hope you're excited. If you've watched this video thus far, please tell me what you think in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I would love to get your answers to a couple of questions. I would love to find out what do you want to see on a Boss Better podcast. And tell me how you consume that content. We're going to go live on Facebook. We're going to go live on YouTube. And then we are going to make it available as a weekly podcast from wherever you get your podcasts. And so I'm interested. Do you prefer to experience it live? If it's every Friday morning at 11 a.m., are you tuning in? Or is it your preference to just have that podcast download to your device so that you can listen to it in the car or when you exercise or while you're cooking dinner? How do you like to consume the content? And what is the right amount of content for you? Are you someone who loves those 60-minute podcasts? Are you someone who would prefer those shorter micro bites of 5-minute podcasts or 8-minute podcasts? As I said earlier, I think we're probably going to land somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 minutes for our shows, but that's not set in stone yet. And so I welcome your feedback on that. Also, just want to know what other podcasts you listen to. I would love to hear when it comes to leadership, supervision, employee engagement, workplace culture, building stronger teams. What podcasts do you find you go back to over and over and over again, and why? What are the things that are happening on that podcast that give you the most utility or that keep you coming back? And I know I'm using the word podcast over and over here as kind of a general umbrella term, but it's a show, right? We're going to do a show starting in August, a Boss Better Now show. And it's going to be live streamed on Facebook and right here on YouTube. It's going to be an almost weekly thing. And there are going to be times I will be coming to you live from various parts of the country whenever we're allowed to travel again and I'm able to go back on the road and do the kinds of training and consulting and keynoting that I love to do. I may be broadcasting to you someday from my hotel room with the lighting from the window. So there's lots of adventures that lie ahead, I think, for this. And I would love to hear from you and get your take on how you like to consume content, the kind of style and approach that you find most intriguing, and whether you want to show up live or as a recording. So would appreciate it so much if you left a comment, or, as you can see on the screen, my email address is there. So drop me a line, send me a note. Even if it's just to say, hey, Joe, I watched your inaugural YouTube test drive live stream, and it was terrible. If you think that, that's okay. This might be terrible. I don't know. I've never live streamed on YouTube before. So I'm learning, and I'm giving it a shot. Anyway, with that, I am going to say thank you so much. If you hung out and you watched this, drop a comment in the box below. If you want more information on how to get the very first episodes of the Boss Better Now podcast, you should go to bossbetternow.com to subscribe. I even think I have I thought I had a graphic here for that, but maybe I don't. bossbetternow.com. bossbetternow.com. If you want to make sure you learn about the podcast and the episodes as soon as they launch, go to bossbetternow.com, subscribe to our emails, and we will make sure we keep you in the loop on that. So I'll have a graphic for next time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Be well out there. Take care. See you next time.